Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So many people are asking, after the ceasefire ended, how long will the current round of war take? When will it end exactly? How many weeks? So we know that the previous round ended just after over 40 days, and then we had a temporary ceasefire that was extended by a further 2 days. So what's next exactly? Also, today, multiple leading figures, both from the Israeli side and from Hamas, made interviews and press conferences. It was Benjamin Netanyahu, Yoav Gallant, and Saleh al-Aruri, who is the deputy political head in Hamas. So, in terms of the length of the war, typically Israel doesn't like very long wars. Its last two major kind of wars, Lebanon 2006 and with Gaza in 2014, they took 32 and almost 50 days respectively. They don't like lasting too much because Israel is a small state and it cannot sustain very long wars. Take out of the equation the war of attrition it had with Egypt, because that was related around the Sinai Peninsula and it didn't affect the heart of Israel. So Israel traditionally doesn't like long wars. If we calculate it based on the fact that its longest war, which was with Gaza, was just over 52 days. I mean, you can add a week, let's say 2 months, 8 weeks in total. Take off 5.5 weeks. That means we have about 3.5 to 4 weeks left. So some people estimate that we could take another 3 to 4 weeks, and then there's a permanent ceasefire. So obviously that's an estimation. Things can escalate, things can go back quicker, but this is the estimation basically. What did Benjamin Netanyahu say, and what did Yoav Gallant say? Well, it's important to note that Netanyahu requested that they have a joint press conference, but Yoav Gallant rejected this. This reaffirms the split inside the Israeli war cabinet that was there from day one. So they did an emergency government, and Benny Gantz came into that government. And even when they did joint press conferences, Yoav Gallant and Benny Gantz sat on one side and Benjamin Netanyahu sat on another side. Today, Yoav Gallant actually refused to have a press conference with Netanyahu. And when he was asked by one of the journalists, he said, I asked him to, but he made his own decision. This is a very dangerous thing, especially when you're talking about war, having a split cabinet, basically, people not agreeing on the decisions. So not only did Israel not know exactly what the hell it was doing after the 7th of October, but it's also split even during the war itself and after almost 50 days, just under 50 days since the war started. So before I reach what both of them said, and they also said important stuff, both of them, because they both said conflicting things when it comes to the results that are desired from the war. And I'll get to both of them in 1 second. I'll start off with what the deputy political head of Hamas, Saleh al-Aruri, said in an interview he had with Al Jazeera. He highlighted a couple of things. That number one, which is the most significant one, is we will not negotiate under fire. So long as Israel is attacking and continuing its attacks on Gaza, there will be no negotiation. That's number one. Then he reiterated that Hamas won't be defeated, and the guy sounded really comfortable. And the body language of him and Netanyahu, of his and Netanyahu's, really signals a lot of things. Netanyahu is very aggravated, such as usual, as with every press conference he has, every time he comes out, he's very aggravated, and this guy's just chilling, even though Gaza's, being attacked so heavily, and so far over 200 people lost their lives just since the war took place again and the ceasefire ended. That's from yesterday. He said that Hamas won't be defeated, they won't negotiate under fire, and that Israel is trying to kneel down the Palestinian people and that it won't succeed in that. He also mentioned something about the swap of the bodies of the prisoners. So Israel has hostages who were killed due to Israeli strikes, and obviously Hamas had some of its fighters were killed during the 7th of October attacks. And he said that they need time to take them away from the rubble, which hints that some of these hostages were in some of the Gaza buildings, and Israel either was careless in its attacks, which is something I spoke about, many people spoke about, complete carelessness to its own people, or that it followed what's called the Hannibal Directive. Even though the Hannibal Directive, they officially kind of renounced it, but it's still technically in effect. So these are some of the highlights of what Saleh Al-Aruri said. And when it came to Netanyahu, he reiterated a couple of things. Some of them blatant lies in front of everyone, like Hamas broke the ceasefire. Hamas didn't break the ceasefire. As a matter of fact, Yoav Gallant boasted about signing the agreement to reignite the war and stop the ceasefire before the ceasefire ended. And also Blinken was there and he gave them his demonic blessings to continue the massacres in Gaza. He also said that Gaza needs a cultural change. Yeah, people in Gaza need to stop teaching people to hate us, and they need to stop teaching people that they need to annihilate us. So this is what Netanyahu wants from Gaza. There have been multiple talks about this, mainly from Netanyahu, that we need to do what happened to Germany and to Japan, a cultural change. He said that I told the soldiers that we will continue after this ceasefire, and here I am delivering. It's as if he's kind of sending messages to his own soldiers to tell them, look, I kind of follow my word. And he also said that they need complete victory over the Hamas, have full security control. He resisted the idea of the PLO going back to Gaza, and he wanted to demolish the Hamas completely and have no hostile regime in Gaza. I wonder how he's going to get that after all that he's done in Gaza, having no hostile regime. If any of you think that there is an option of a non-hostile regime, comment. Yeah, tell me what you think exactly, if there's a possibility of a non-hostile regime to Israel in Gaza. Also, one of the journalists asked him what he thought about multiple polls in Israel confirming that the population, a large portion of the Israeli society, believes that the government had prior knowledge about the 7th of October attacks, which resonates with some of what the Israeli soldiers who were in charge of that region, who were basically in charge of watching over Gaza, reported about suspicious movements, and whether Netanyahu thought that there might be an attack, albeit not at this scale, and he let it happen to unite the army that was split after the massive political division and split inside of Israel. And Netanyahu said, there are no conspiracies. He was insisting that there are no conspiracies, and that polls shouldn't be listened to, and that the reporter and the Israeli public should listen to the right things and not to polls. He was also asked about arming, because Israel has been constantly arming more Israeli civilians. Itamar Ben-Gvir has been handing freebies, free weapons for Israeli settlers, and Netanyahu is strongly with that. Very important notes came from the other press conference that Yoav Gallant did. especially when it comes, and this is very important, because the war started, the war aims, the declared aims of the war, objectives of the war of Israel, and you judge a war, it's victory, your victory or failure based on the accomplishment of your objectives. Their initial objectives were, number one, completely demolish the Hamas. Demolish the Hamas meaning demolishing the movement, its military capabilities, basically them ceasing to exist, demolish something, Look at the dictionary, what demolishing means. Gallant did not say, even though Gallant used to say that before, not just Netanyahu, he stopped saying demolishing the Hamas. So they're clearly not agreeing on the objectives of the war anymore. What did Gallant say? He said that we want to gain victory over Hamas and break its military and organizational capabilities and make it unable to have control. And he did not elaborate too much. He just said that. That's contradicting to what Netanyahu is saying. It's in complete opposite. There's a big difference between saying I want to demolish someone or I want to hurt or break their military or organizational capabilities. He's saying that because he's probably more aware of what they're able or unable to achieve. If they haven't been able to achieve all of this bombardment on Gaza in just over 40 days, how the hell will they be able to achieve anything later on, especially when they have increasing international pressure? So we have very conflicting statements from the people who are supposedly leading this war. There were also reports about people in Gaza and Khan Yunis, which is in the southern part of Gaza, receiving leaflets saying, move to the south as much as possible, very close to the border of Rafah. And that's something we mentioned previously when Israel was telling the people in the north of Gaza, flee down south. Their technique was to completely ethnically cleanse Gaza. So it's yet another desperate attempt for them to try and convince some people to go out, even though it failed miserably during the heaviest parts of Israeli bombardment in the northern part of Gaza. Up until day 43, over 800,000 Palestinians remained, and when the ceasefire started, they started going back up. Some of them were even shot and killed by Israel. When going back to their homes, they were like, I'm staying in my land, I'm not going anywhere, we won't have a second Nakba. Your aim to force us out of our homes will fail. We will die even if we remain in our homes. These are women, children, non-combatants, people who could go down south. That's the resilience and faith of the Palestinian people. So this, in short, is what happened today with these statements. In terms of the length of the war, again, you're talking about probably a couple of more weeks to satisfy the radical part that wants Netanyahu to completely go ahead and annihilate them. But they're clearly not going to go too much based on my understanding of what's happening on the ground and their statements, especially because Yoav Gallant, who is the defense minister, is no longer saying demolish the Hamas. So they might sell it in a package similar to how they sold it in previous years, many times. We've seen it so many times. 2008, they said they wanted to demolish them. They failed miserably. 2014, it ended up with saying, oh, we hurt their military capabilities and we have weakened them. This is what they'll most likely eventually say, and it could potentially take 3 weeks or perhaps even shorter, and I will keep you updated in the next video. Take care.